As you can see, I have a new intro. Not that I had one to begin with. That will be there for a while. I want to try something new. I don't know how long it will stay, but so far I'm liking it, and it will stay there until I get tired. So, what we're going to do is finish up part 2 of Scary Stories Told in the Dark. And we are on She Was Spittin' and Yowlin' Just Like a Cat. So, the first story is called The Bride. The minister's daughter had gotten married. After the wedding ceremony, there was a great feast with music and dancing and contests and games, even old children's games. When they got to plaything, what's the fuck? When they got to playing hide and seek, the bride decided to hide in her grandfather's trunk up in the attic. They'll never find me here, she thought. As she was climbing into the trunk, the lid came down and cracked her on the head as she fell unconscious inside. The lid slammed shut and locked. That hurts. No one will ever know how long she called for help or how hard she struggled to free herself from that tomb. Everyone in the village searched for her, and they looked almost everywhere, but no one thought of looking in that trunk. After a week, her brand new bridegroom, I guess that's what they call it. Her brand new bridegroom and all the others gave her up for lost. Years later, a maid went up into the attic looking for something she needed. Maybe it's in the trunk, she thought. She opened it, and she screamed. There lay the missing bride in her wedding dress, but by then, she was only a skeleton. And how years later, I wonder how long she's been there. It just says years later, so it can be like maybe 2 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. The next story is Rings on Her Finger. Daisy Clark had been in a coma for more than a month when the doctor said that she had finally died. She was buried on a cool summer day in a small cemetery about a mile from her home. I almost said house, but it's the same thing. May she always rest in such peace, her husband said, but she didn't. Late that night, a grave robber with a shovel and a lantern began to dig her up. Since the ground was still soft, he quickly reached the coffin and got it open. His hunch was right. Daisy had been buried wearing 2 valuable rings, a wedding ring with a diamond in it, and a ring with a ruby that glowed as if it were alive. The thief got down on his knees and reached into the coffin to get the rings, but they were stuck fast on her fingers. So he decided that the only way to get them was to cut off her fingers with the knife. But when he cut into the finger with the wedding ring, it began to bleed. And Daisy Clark began to stir. Suddenly, she sat up. Terrified, the thief scrambled to his feet. He accidentally kicked over the lantern, and the light went out. He could hear Daisy climb out of her grave as she moved past him in the dark. He stood there, frozen with fear, clutching the knife in his hand. When Daisy saw him, she pulled her shroud around her and asked, "Who are you?" When the grave robber heard his corpse speak, he ran. Daisy shrugged her shoulders and walked on, and never once looked back. But in his fear and confusion, the thief fled in the wrong direction. He pitched headlong into her grave, fell on the knife, and stabbed himself. While Daisy walked home, the thief bled to death. That's a nice one. I like that one. And the next one, the third one, is called The Drum. Once there were two sisters. Dolores was 7 and Sandra was 5. They lived in a small house in the country with their mother and their baby brother, Arthur. Their father was a seaman and he was away on a long voyage. One day Dolores and Sandra were running across oh my god. My tongue is tripping over itself. Were running across the field near their house when they met a gypsy girl playing with the drum. Now, many people would think the word gypsy is racist. People were called gypsies because they were thought they were from Egypt. So that's not really racist. Her family was camping in the field for a few days. As the girl played, a little mechanical man and a woman came out with the drum and danced. Dolores and Sandra had never seen such a drum, and they begged the girl to give it to them. She looked at them and laughed. "I will give it to you," she said, "but only if you're really bad." Oh, God. "Come back tomorrow and tell me how bad you were, and I will see." As soon as the two sisters got home, they started shouting, which was against the rules in their house. Then they wrote all over the walls with their crayons. At supper, they spilled their food. And when it was time for bed, they wouldn't go. They did everything they could think of to upset their mother. They were really bad. Early the next morning, they hurried off to find the gypsy girl. "We were really bad yesterday," they told her. "So please, give us the drum." They really want this thing so bad. Like, what? I don't understand. But when they told her that they had done what they had done, the gypsy girl laughed. "Oh, you must be much worse than that if I am to give you the drum," she said. So I guess she wants them to kill somebody. Is it worth it? As soon as Dolores and Sandra got home, they pulled up all the flowers in the garden. They let the pig out and chased it away. They tore their clothes. They sloshed in the mud. They were a lot worse than the day before. "If you do not stop," their mother said, "I will go away and take Arthur with me, and you will get a new mother with glass eyes and a wooden tail." So they will get a mother with an ass made out of wood. Okay. I don't know how that works, but I guess if it works, right? That scared Dolores and Sandra. They loved their mother, and they loved Arthur. They could not imagine being without them, and they began to cry. "I don't want you to leave," their mother said. Wait, I don't want to leave you. Dyslexia kicking in. "I don't want to leave you," their mother said. "But unless you change your behavior, I will have to leave you." "We'll be good," the girls promised. Yet they did not really believe that their mother would go away. "She is just trying to scare us," Dolores said later. "We'll get the drum tomorrow," said Sandra. "Then we'll be good again." Maybe if they want to be like really bad, they'll kill the gypsy girl and take the drum from her. Now that's worse. Early the next morning, they rushed off to find the gypsy girl. When they found her, she was playing the drum again, and the little man and woman were dancing. They told the gypsy girl how bad they had been the day before. "That must be bad enough to get the drum," they said. "Oh no," said the gypsy girl. "You must be much worse than that." "But we promised our mother to be good from now on," said the girls. "If you really want the drum," said the gypsy girl, "you must be much worse." It's only for one more day, Dolores told Sandra. Then we will have the drum. I hope you're right, Sandra said. As soon as they got home, they beat the dog with a stick. Oh my God. They broke the dishes. The dishes. Whew, ouch. The dishes. They tore the clothes to pieces. They spanked their baby brother Arthur. Their mother began to cry. You are not keeping your promise, she said. We will be good, said Dolores. We promise, said Sandra. I can't wait much longer, said their mother. Please try. Early the next morning, before their mother was awake, Dolores and Sandra ran to see the gypsy girl. They told her all about the bad things they had done the day before. We were horrid, said Sandra. We were worse than we had ever been, said Dolores. Can we have the drum now, please? No, said the gypsy girl. I never meant to give it to you. It was just a game we were playing. I thought you knew that. Dolores and Sandra began to cry. They rushed home as quickly as they could, but their mother and Arthur were gone. Oh no. They are out shopping, said Dolores. Oh, you sure about that? Oh boy. They'll be back soon. But they were still not back when the time for lunch came. Dolores and Sandra felt lonely and scared. They wandered through the fields the rest of the day. Maybe they will be home when we get back, said Dolores. When they got home, they saw through the window that the lamps were lit, and there was a fire in the fireplace. But they did not see their mother or Arthur. Instead, there was their new mother, her glass eyes glistening, her wooden tail thumping on the floor. So I don't get that one. But in the picture, are these? They have the two girls here, and in the trees, there's trees, but like the trees don't have leaves on them, and what looks like sitting on the tree branches are monkeys with devil horns. That's what it looks like. I don't get it. I like the gypsy girl though. That's for sure. She really played them. Played them like a fiddle, baby. Okay. The next story is called The Window. Margaret and her brothers, Paul and David, the Lost Boys, shared a small house on top of a hill just outside the village. It was so warm one summer's night that Margaret could not sleep. She sat up in bed in the darkness of her room, watching the moon move across the sky. Suddenly, something caught her eye. That rhymed. She saw two small yellow-green lights moving through the woods near the graveyard at the bottom of the hill. They looked like eyes of some animal, but she could not make out what kind of creature it was. Soon the creature left the woods and moved up the hill toward the house. For a few minutes, Margaret lost sight of it. Then she saw it coming across the lawn toward her window. Scary. It looked something like a man, and yet it didn't. Margaret was terrified. She wanted to run from her room, but the door was next to her window. She was afraid the creature would see her and break in before she could escape. Who makes a door next to a window? Is that even a thing? I'm trying to think of that. I don't think I've ever seen a door next to it. Well, yeah, never mind. That was a stupid question. When the creature turned and moved in another direction, Margaret rushed to the door. But before she could open the door, it was back. Margaret found herself staring through the window at a shrunken face like that of a mummy, its yellow-green eyes gleaming like a cat's eyes. She wanted to scream, but she was so frightened that she could not make a sound. The creature broke the window glass, unlocked the window, and crawled inside. Margaret tried to flee, but the creature caught her. It twisted its long, bony fingers into her hair, pulled back her head, and sank its teeth into her throat. A vampire? Margaret screamed and fainted when her brothers heard her piercing scream. They rushed to her room, but by the time they got the door unlocked, the creature had fled. Margaret lay on the floor bleeding and unconscious. While Paul tried to stop the bleeding, David chased the creature down the hill toward the graveyard, but soon he lost sight of it. The police thought it was the work of an escaped lunatic who believed he was a vampire. When Margaret recovered, her brothers wanted to move to a safer place where it'd be harder to break in, but Margaret refused. The creature would never come back. She was sure of that. But just in case, Paul and David began to keep loaded pistols in the rooms. One night, months later, Margaret was awakened by a scratching sound at the window. When she opened her eyes, there was the same shrunken face staring in at her. That night, her brothers heard her cries in time. They chased the creature down the hill, and David shot it in the leg. But the creature managed to scramble over the graveyard wall and disappeared near an old burial vault. The next day, Margaret and her brothers watched as the sexton of the church opened the burial vault. And no, I wasn't trying to be funny when I said sexton. Inside was a horrifying scene. Broken coffins, bones, rotting flesh were scattered all over the floor. Only one coffin had not been disturbed. When the sexton opened it, there lay the creature with the shrunken face that had attacked Margaret. The telltale bullet was in its leg. They did the only thing they knew of to rid themselves of a vampire. The sexton built the roaring blaze outside the vault and fed the shrunken body to the flames. They watched the body burn until nothing remained but ashes. I like this one, hands down. I like this one. It kind of reminds me of Salem's Lot, Nosferatu. I like that one. That one's cool. Oh man. This one's the fourth one, I think. And it's called excuse me. It's called Wonderful Sausage. Would you settle for my sausage? One dark, rainy Saturday night afternoon, a fat, jolly butcher named Samuel Blunt had an argument over money with his wife, Eloise. Blunt lost his temper and killed Eloise. Oh my God, no. Then he ground her up into sausage meat and buried her bones under a big, flat rock in the backyard. To keep the murder a secret, he told everyone that she had moved away. That kind of reminds me of that serial killer Robert Pickton, except he killed prostitutes, grounded them up, and fed them to pigs. That's what that reminds me of. Blunt mixed his new sausage meat with pork, then seasoned it with salt and pepper. Added some sage and thyme, or is it? How do you pronounce that? Thyme or thyme? I think it's thyme, and a bit of garlic. To give it a special flavor, he smoked it in his smokehouse for a while. He called it Blunt's Special Sausage. There was such a demand for this new sausage that Blunt bought the best hogs he could find and started raising his own pork. He also kept a sharp lookout for humans who might make a tasty sausage meat. One day, a nice, plump school teacher came into his shop. Blunt grabbed her and grounded her up. Another time, Blunt's dentist came by. He was a little round man and and into the grinder he went. Oh my God. He was a little. Oh, wait. Then one by one, the children in the neighborhood began to disappear. And so did their kittens and puppies. I hope this dude goes to hell. But no one ever dreamed that Blunt the Butcher had anything to do with it. Things went on that way for years. Then one day, Blunt made a big mistake. A fat boy came into the butcher shop. Blunt grabbed him and started to drag him off to the sausage grinder. But the boy broke loose and ran out of the shop, and Blunt chased after him, waving a big butcher knife. When people saw this, they realized at once what had become of all the missing children and grown-ups and kittens and puppies. An angry crowd gathered at the butcher shop. No one knows for sure just what happened to Blunt that day. Some say he was fed to his hogs. Others say he was fed to his sausage grinder. But he was never seen again, and neither was his wonderful sausage meat. I hope he just was kicked in that goddamn grinder for the puppies and kittens. Okay, we got this one. Next one is called The Cat's Paw. I don't know, the picture here reminds me of that one movie with the cat people. I forgot what that movie is called. Somebody was stealing the meat Jed Smith kept in his smokehouse. Another smokehouse butcher character, great. Every day a ham or some bacon or something else was missing. Finally, Jed decided he had to put a stop to it. One night he hid in the smokehouse with his rifle and waited for the thief. He didn't have to wait too long, for soon a black she-cat slunk in. She was the biggest cat Jed had ever seen. When she jumped up and pulled down a ham hanging from the ceiling, Jed grabbed his rifle and turned on the lights. But instead of running away, the cat jumped at him. He fired and shot off one of her paws. Jed was sure he heard a woman scream right after his gun went off. The cat began tearing around the room, spitting and yowling. Then she ran up the chimney and was gone. Jed stared at the cat's paw, only it wasn't a cat's paw anymore. A woman's foot lay wriggling on the floor, all shot up and bloody. So it's a witch that's been doing it, he told himself. Just then, one of Jed's neighbors, a fellow named Burdick, I swear to God, that's what it says in this, Burdick, came racing down the road to get a doctor. His wife's foot had been shot in an accident, he told Jed. She's bleeding pretty bad, he said. The doctor got to her barely in time. People who were there when it happened said that she was spitting and yowling just like a cat. Ooh, I like that one. And the last one is called The Voice. Ellen had just fallen asleep when she heard a strange voice. Ellen, it whispered, I am coming up the stairs. I am on the first step. Now I am on the second step. Ellen got scared and called her parents, but they didn't hear her, and they didn't come. Then the voice whispered, Ellen, I'm on the top step. Now I'm in the hall. Now I'm outside your room. Then it whispered, I'm standing right next to your bed. And then, I've got you. Ellen screamed and the voice stopped. Her father rushed into the room and turned on the light. Somebody is in here, Ellen said. They looked, and nobody was there. I'm guessing Ellen had schizophrenia. Those are all the stories in that second part. My favorite one is The Cat's Paw And The Window, because I love vampires. I think The Wonderful Sausage will be third. Well, I don't know. The Drum, I don't know. It's hard. I think all these stories are pretty good, but I really like The Window a lot because vampires and I'm biased. The Drum, it was really good because the girls really got played by the gypsy girl. And I felt that was poor kids. Anything for drums. Rings on Her Finger. I kind of like how that ended. The Cat's Paw was good. Wonderful Sausage, good. I don't know. All these stories are pretty strong, except the voice. Maybe it was just to show Ellen has schizophrenia or something like that. That the mind is a terrifying place in itself, so powerful. But that's the last of those stories, and we have maybe a couple more sections to cover. And I don't know if anything's going to top that for the rest of this book, but we can only hope, right? Right.